Hey, what's up guys? In this video I'm going to show you how to use the Musixmatch API with Python. So Musixmatch is just a API where you can access song lyrics from millions of songs around the world along with their translations into a few different languages. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using Python 3 for this video. So if you're using Python 2, make sure you upgrade to Python 3. And I'm going to be using macOS and the terminal inside of macOS. So if you're using Linux or Windows, you're going to have to adapt it a little bit. But let me just show you the final product. So it comes up with a menu, and I'm just going to show you the example here where we can search for the lyrics of a song. I'll just say Kendrick Lamar is the artist, and the name of the track is Barbed Wire. So yeah, here's the lyrics, and it shows us the API call. So the first thing that you're gonna need is to create an account at developer.musixmatch.com. And I've already created my account, but once you create yours, just come over here to where it says your name, and then go to your dashboard, go to your applications, and here we can see your API key, and we're going to need that in the future. So now that we've got that, let's just go over to back to developer.musixmatch.com in a new tab. Let's check out the documentation. So you guys might want to read through this before you continue on, but basically we're just going to go over to the playground, which is like a nice feature that they have to access their API and see JSON data. So just click on that. Alright, so once we're in the playground, we need to authorize it. So click authorize, come back over here, and we'll grab your API key, copy it, and then paste it into this authorization. Alright, cool, so now our playground is authorized. Next thing we're going to do, I'm going to have you come over to my GitHub. I'll link it in the description. And you're just going to download this Python file that I made to make it easier to access the API. So come over and click clone or download, download zip. Just drag it to your desktop, double click it, and just take both of these out and throw them on your desktop. And we're just going to open this first one, the API.py. So yeah, I'm going to be using Atom text editor. You guys can use whatever you want, but to open a file with Atom, all you gotta really do is just drag it in here. Alright, so this is just my accessor file that I made for the API. It makes it easier to interact with it using Python. So the first thing we have here is the base URL. This is just the URL that we append everything else to in order to make an API call. Next thing we have is the API key. So if you still have that in your clipboard, just paste it right in here. And here's all of the API methods. So if we go over to this playground and we click one of these, it'll open up the API methods associated with each one. So I went through and grabbed all of these API methods and added them in here. So you can see matcher.lyrics.get, which is this one right here, is associated with the Python variable lyrics_matcher, and it's also associated with A1. So I went through all of these and added them in here, and then I made an array of them all, and that'll be useful when we want to access it. The format URL, this is just a little thing we need to add to the end of the API call so that it knows to format it in JSON form. And the callback URL, I just said callback here, it doesn't really matter. And then we have parameters. So if we open up one of these, you can see that we have a few parameters such as album ID and fHasLyrics, page size. So I went through all of these methods and I found all of the parameters that are associated with these methods, and I made just a bunch of variables associated with them to make it easier to access. And then in the interior I made another array of all the parameters. And then down here we have the arrays with parameters for each method. So basically each one of these is associated with one up here. So we have the API method lyrics matcher, and then we have the lyrics matcher parameters. So P1 and P2 are associated with the lyrics matcher, which is basically just the artist and the track parameters. And I went through and found all of them that are associated with each, and then I just made an array of them. And this function right here, get parameters, it'll take in one of these API methods, and then it'll spit out the associated parameters. So these are all the same. So A1 is lyrics matcher, and then X1 is lyrics matcher parameters. Alright, so now that we have that, let's just go over here back to the playground. And I'm just going to show you this one because it's the simplest for right now. So we can enter in a track parameter. We'll say barbed wire, and the artist parameter is Kendrick Lamar. Now we'll tap try it out. So here is the entire API call that we made. So we have the API key, we have the artist name, we have the track name, and we have the formatter, and we have the API method. And then here's the base URL. So now that we have everything ready to go, and you can kind of see how this API method works, in the next video I'm going to write out the entire Python program for that. Welcome back to part 2 of the Musixmatch API tutorial series. So now we already have this API, lyrics API.py, which can basically access the API easily for us and stores all of the API methods in variables. Now what we're going to do is write the program that interacts with these variables and creates the API calls. Remember in the first part of that first video I showed you the final product, so that's what we're going to be making now. And you already have it in lyrics.py on your desktop, but I'm just going to write it out to show you how everything works. So I'm just going to save this as lyrics2.py for right now because I already have lyrics.py on my desktop. So first thing we're going to need to do is import requests. And if you don't already have requests installed, you're going to need to say pip3 install, or actually if you're using Mac, say sudo pip3 install requests to have admin rights, and just enter in your password. And there we go, we got request installed. Next thing we're going to need is JSON. And then we're also going to need all of the variables from inside of this lyrics API file. So we're going to say from lyrics underscore API import star. Alright, so now that we have that, we're just going to make a menu loop for the user to interact with. So we're just going to say while true, say welcome to the Musixmatch API Explorer. And then we'll say menu options. And the first one will be that to call one of the API methods and with parameters and see the JSON data. And the second one is going to be that example, so they can search for lyrics of a song. And the last option will be to exit. And then we're going to get their choice. So we'll say input, have a little placeholder there for them to enter in their choice. And now let's deal with all of these options. So we have three choices. We have 0, we have 1, and we have 2. And these actually need some quotes around them because they're strings. Alright, so the choice is 0, they want to exit. So we can just say break. Now if they choose 1, they're going to want to see the parameters for an API method. And that one's a little more complex, so we'll save that one for last. And then the second one here is the example. So we'll start with this one. So the first thing we need to do is ask them the name of the artist. Because remember, they're searching for the lyrics of a song, and the two parameters for that, because we're using this API method here, the two parameters are q_track and q_artist. So we need to get the artist from them, and we need to get the track name from them. So the artist name will be the next input. And then let's get the name of the track. And now we need to make our API call. So the first thing we're going to need is the base URL. You can see the base URL right up here. And then we need to add to it the lyrics matcher API call, API method. This one right here, matcher.lyrics.get. Next, we'll need the format URL. That's down here. It formats it as JSON and does the callback. And then we're going to need the artist search parameter. That's this one right here, P1. And after we have the artist search parameter, we're going to add this variable we got from them. So we're going to need the artist name. So this is basically saying, okay, what's the artist's name? What is it equal to? And then we give them this artist name that the user just gave us. And then we need the track search parameter. And we need the track name that we just got. And the last thing we're going to add is the API key. Our API key is up here. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is get the request. Basically, we're going to call the API now. So we're going to say request equals requests.get API call. I'll just add a comment here. And now we're going to turn this into a JSON data. So we're going to say data equals request.json, and then basically once we get the JSON back, then we need to store it in this data parameter. So let me show you what the JSON would look like if we did a call. So here we did the call barbed wire with Kendrick Lamar for this same matcher.lyrics.get method. And here's the response we got. You can see we have to go down 2 levels, down past message and header. Actually, we're going to be going down into message. It's not easy to see though because it isn't formatted. And then we're going to be going into the body parameter. And that's when we can access the lyrics. But we have to be down these 2 levels, message and then body. So now we're just saying data now is equivalent to whatever is down at this level of message and body. And then we're just going to print out the API call that we made. And then we're going to print out the lyrics. And this is located down at message, body, and then lyrics. And then the variable name for the actual lyrics is lyrics body. So we're going down 2 more levels to lyrics, and then lyrics body. And then if they want to do it again, let's give them that option. So we'll say again, yes or no. And we'll say, let's set again equal to that input, whatever they choose. And if they say no, then we'll break out of the loop and end the program. So let's just try it with, well, let me just put in something here so that it doesn't cause an error. But now let's just try and run this and just do the example. So I'm going to save this. I also need to save the lyrics API. I'm going to open up terminal. Alright, so I just got an error. So I had to move my 2 Python files into a specific folder off of my desktop because other Python files on my desktop were messing with it. So that's all I did. As long as they're still in the same directory, you guys can keep them on your desktop. But I just had to move mine into a separate folder. So next thing we're going to do is try and run it. So we're going to open up terminal, and let's navigate to where they are. So mine are in a folder called right now. And then we're just going to run it with Python3, and mine is lyrics2.py. Alright, so it gave us some menu options, and we want to test out the second one. So it asks the name of the artist, It's the name of the track. Artist search parameter is not defined. So let's find out what we did wrong there. Probably a spelling mistake somewhere. Oh yeah, so parameter should have an ER rather than an, what did I put there? Okay, so just change this last A to an E if you guys did the same thing. I always spell that word wrong. Yeah, so change it in track as well. Now save it. And let's run it again. Track. Oh, that's spelled wrong as well. Sorry about that. So it's track search parameter, not track search parameter. Line 31. Oh yeah. Alright, so save that. Let's try it again. Alright, there we go. And if we say no, then it should exit the program. Alright, cool. So let's go ahead and figure out how to do that other option, the first option. So we're going to sorry about that. So let's go ahead and print out API methods. And we're going to say for index, comma, API method, and enumerate. Enumerate is basically saying store the variable name in this variable API method, and then store the index as if we're iterating over it in this index field. So we're going to say enumerate API methods, and it starts at 1 by default, so we're just going to override that and say start at 0. And for each one of these API methods, so it's getting the API methods from this array right here. So for each of these API methods, we're going to say print the string of the index and we'll print out the parameter, or actually the API method, and then we'll make some space, and we'll ask for their choice. Then let's get their choice. We'll call it the method choice. Is input. Put a little cursor there. Make some more space. And then we'll say the user choice is equal to the API methods at the index method choice. So it's going to present the user with a list of choices numbered 0 through 15, and whatever they enter there is going to be basically the index of the array that we want to pull out. And then we'll say the parameter, spell that right, list equals get parameters. And that, if you remember, this get parameters function is over here in our list API. So we're going to get the parameters at user choice. Next, we're going to, well, actually, let me just show you how this works. So it passes in user choice, which is equivalent to choice here, and it says if choice equals A1, return X1. So if choice equals lyrics matcher, return lyrics matcher parameters, and that's P1 and P2, which is up here the artist search parameter and the track search parameter. So next thing we're going to do is now that we have this API method, we're going to print out parameters so that we can show them parameters for that specific API method they wanted. So we're going to say for index parameter, and enumerate like before, parameter list, and the start is going to be at 0 again. This will be a colon, and then we're going to print out, same as before, the string of the index, as well as the actual parameter itself. Then let's make some space. Now we're going to start building the API call. So in the beginning, the API call is going to consist of the base URL, the user choice, which is basically the method that they chose, and it's also going to consist of the format URL, which is from over here. And now we need to basically figure out the values that the developer wants to enter for those parameters. So we're going to say, we're going to have a nested loop in here. We're going to say while true, we're going to print out the API call so far. So in the beginning, that'll just consist of these. But then after each consecutive parameter that they enter a value for, it'll append that to the end of the API call. I'll make some space. Then we're going to ask them which parameter would you like to add a value for. And they have options from 0 through n, n being the highest highest index of the parameter, and then they can type X to make the final call. Alright, so we need to get their choice. So we're going to say parameter choice equals input as a cursor, make some space. So if the first base case we want is if they type X. If they type X, then they're done and they want to make the call and get the JSON data back. So we're going to say add the API key and make the call. So we're going to say if parameter choice is X, then API call equals API call plus API key. So we're adding the API key. And then we're going to say request equals request dot get API call. And then we're going to say data is equal to request dot JSON. Now we're going to print out the final API call. This is going to be basically what we're sending to Musixmatch. Some space. And now we're going to print out the JSON data. So to do that, we say json.dumps data, and the sort keys are equal to true, and the indent, we'll set it to 2. You can set it to whatever you want. And then we're breaking, so we're getting out of this loop. And we'll say else if the parameter they entered wasn't x. Why is that doing that? I guess we'll see. We're going to say parameter choice string. So let's figure out the string of this parameter choice is equivalent to parameter list at the index of the int version of parameter choice. So this just gets their choice from up here and it turns it into an integer. So basically they were presented with a list of options 0 through however many parameters, and then they choose one and it goes into this variable, and then we get the API, or we come over here to the array and we see which index is associated with that, which value is associated with it at that index, and then we store it in this variable. So we're going to say value equals input parameter choice string. I can't spell. So basically this is just going to print out that parameter. It's going to say like and q underscore artist equals, and then whatever the user or developer inputs, then it'll store it in that value and then append it. So let's make the code to append it now. So API call equals API call plus parameter choice string plus value. And value is basically the value that they entered for that parameter. And then we'll give it a little bit of space. Now let's try and run it. Save it. Alright, so I'm going to enter in the first option. Prints out the API methods. Let's just say our choice is 0. Gives us the API call so far. That looks good. Which parameter would you like to add a value for? And see, we have our 2 options here, 0 or 1. So let's start with 0, which is the artist. Artist is Kendrick Lamar. And then the second one, which parameter would you like to add a value for, is 1. The track is barbed wire. And now let's type X to make the call. Cool. So we have our final API call up here with the API key appended to the end, and we have our JSON data right here. And remember from earlier I was showing you how these things are on different levels, and you can see it pretty clearly here. We have the first level message, second level body, third level lyrics, and fourth level lyrics body. That's where we get our value from. And as you can see, they format it with the escape sequences like \n to create new lines. They have a few \t's in here to create tabs. So I think that's basically it, guys. There are some other cool things you can do with their API. We're only using the free version. If you really want to use this commercially, there's a pro version. You can do up to 50k API calls daily, and the plus version is unlimited. And I think this one's the coolest because it has those synced lyrics, and that's what you usually have on like Spotify when you use Musixmatch. They also have this new thing that just came out called AI, and I think they did natural language processing on all of the lyrics. looks pretty interesting. You guys should check it out. And they're also going to have a playground for that too. So when that comes out, I'll probably make a video on that as well. So please like and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you soon.